Do you remember the absolutely insane propaganda that we were exposed to during the COVID-19 pandemic, especially in the early years? For me, that period was a wake-up call. I was watching these videos, like you all were, of nurses dancing around hospital corridors as if they were super happy that there was a pandemic, so called, happening. There were weird, absurd videos of celebrities that were singing songs about the joys of taking the vaccine. A vaccine that was really dangerous and not at all effective. And in fact, the foundation, the operating system, as the CEO of Moderna said, for transhumanist technologies. And we're not going to go deep into that now, but it's highly concerning. You even had Stephen Colbert, strange man, pathetic man, maybe not even quite a man, standing in front of two syringes and dancing about vaccination. I had the feeling that I was in the middle of some weird Hunger Games scenario. And it wasn't really obvious to me that anyone would actually take any of this seriously. I more imagined that the citizens of the world were hecklers in the audience of a really terrible stand-up comedian and that we were all throwing tomatoes and rotten eggs at him. But that wasn't the case. Actually, a lot of people around me and around you instead listened to these people. They took vaccines because they got a hamburger. Oh, I guess the vaccine must be really great if they have to bribe me with hamburgers. I struggled with respecting a lot of people back then. It was hard for me to feel shared humanity with them. And I do still think today that there was something different about us. And I think the most important thing was whether people had God. Because when you have God, you can really see how evil works. And what happened then was evil. And a similar kind of evil is happening now, yet again. And we don't know what's going to come on the other side of this crazy new propaganda campaign. But I'm sure we're not going to like it. I'm referring today to a particular video that I'm going to show you from the European Commission. I think it was Jimmy Dore who made me aware of that. I do enjoy his channel. He seems to be non-partisan, and I also think he's funny. So, I'm not going to bring the stand-up comedy to this. Instead, I'm going to take a more theological lens, an archetypal lens, if you will. Because in the previous video that I uploaded to this channel, I was sharing with you my great concern that all of the good work that we men are doing now to become more resilient, more strong, is actually being weaponized against us through a kind of black magic magician spell in which people, men, who are otherwise great guys, they start to believe in a reality that doesn't exist. And because they believe in a reality that doesn't exist, it could be the reality in which Putin wants to take over all of Europe, which is obviously a blatant lie. But if you believe in that reality, you could be weaponized. Your heroism could be weaponized for you to go to the front lines, into the meat grinder, and have a statue built in your name. Wouldn't that be wonderful? You die there for some stupid war that nobody had to fight because you were given a narrative, a Hollywood narrative, a propaganda narrative, that it was going to bring you honor. In the eyes of God, it would bring you the greatest dishonor imaginable. It would put you in disfavor with God because you're fighting for people who are God's enemy. And I don't say this word lightly, to be God's enemy, to even potentially use the word, these are Satanists. The way in which they view the world is altogether evil. They seem to enjoy suffering. They seem to enjoy oppressing people. They seem to enjoy inciting panic. And they seem to enjoy inciting madness. And they did far too good of a job of it last time. And I don't want them to succeed this time. So I'm going to show you this video. I want you to take a particularly strong look at the way the camera works, like the erratic camera movements and the weird editing that seems insane. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on that just after you're done watching it.
To What's in My Bag Survival Edition. First up, my glasses. Super important if you want to see what is happening or not. Next, my document in a waterproof pouch. A must in a rainy Brussels. Now, let's talk about lighting. I have a flashlight. If you don't forget the matches and of course, the light. Turn.
Yeah, that's
Another,
funny.
of course.
That's really funny.
There is life. And my special friend, a Swiss Army knife. 18 tools in only one knife. A must-have. And don't forget your medication. You might need it, because you never know. And don't forget something to eat. You might be hungry, very hungry. And of course, some cash. In the middle of a crisis, cash is king. And your credit card might just be a piece of plastic, a charger and a power bank. Because a dead phone is a dead end. Playing cards, a bit of distraction, never hurt anyone. And don't forget a radio. The smaller one. This is everything you need to survive the first 72 hours of a crisis. Speaking about being prepared, the EU is preparing its strategy to be sure that every citizen is safe in case of crisis.
Don't you just love it when politicians and CEOs and leaders of think tanks tell you that they're going to make you safe? It's so believable. You know, I feel like we're on the same team here after watching that video right there. I don't know, what do you think? Did it seem a bit insane to you? Like many of the comments, they are referring to it as seeming like it's like a video from the Fallout game, which is this dystopian computer game where you have all of these propaganda videos like this. Feel free to watch it again. I'll put it in the show notes, even though in a way I don't want to give this attention. But I think actually my purpose with this video is to break the spell. And I'm going to use language here now which may be alienating to some of you. But this is just truth the way I see it. That this is not merely propaganda. And I learned a lot from the past round with the COVID-19 propaganda. There's something more. There's something more happening. Propaganda is when you're told lies and your sense of reality is distorted through dishonest news, misleading news, which is the norm these days. But there's something else happening here. And I call it chaos magic. The video holds a frequency of insanity. And in my perception, this has been carefully conjured by magicians, essentially. I wouldn't be surprised at all if there were actual legit rituals that were hosted in order to infuse this video with the maximum amount of damage. This may sound crazy to you, but on the level of spirit, this is how evil works. There are beings in the second heaven, the subtle realm, that seem to have taken over a lot of our politicians, so that they're not quite human anymore. And I say this from a perspective of a man who's increasingly finding a close relationship to Jesus Christ and God. And the Holy Spirit has really been moving in our home lately, and it's been a remarkable thing for us. And the more this happens, the more I see this is not just propaganda. This is occult magic. And so I think that happened during the pandemic as well. The way it all seemed to be like Hunger Games levels of insanity. It wasn't just propaganda. It was magic. It was magic designed to make people who are otherwise reasonable, but who lack God, to make them go insane. And they did, for a while. And they will again, if they buy the propaganda and the magic, without question. And so this is where we're at, I believe, is that there is now a building magical attack against humanity, but particularly Europe, because it seems like our leaders have decided that it's time for Europe to fall and to introduce a digital control grid fully governed by AI. It's not like it's not going to happen anywhere else, but it seems like the timeline for this happening in Europe has been rapidly accelerated. That means that we will have to expect to lose our freedoms, at least in the physical, at a fairly rapid pace moving forwards. But I'm creating this video for those of you who are strong. For those of you who are not merely lifting heavy weights at the gym, but who have been speaking out, who have been able to identify the various sources of corruption, who haven't fallen into the trap of thinking that Donald Trump is here to save us. Because, you know, the whole new age, Trumpian golden age narrative that have merged and become this one absolute pipe dream that we're going to be saved. If you believe that, you know, I hope that what I'm sharing with you now is going to do something for you in order to move you towards waking up and realizing there are no people in terms of worldly power who are on our side at this point. Maybe a couple, but the various talking heads that we see on television, no, they're corrupt and they're probably possessed. And that means that as strong people, but strong men, we will need to enter, and I know this sounds crazy to some of you, but we will need to enter the arena of spiritual warfare. Because there is crazy making magic coming our way, and we are going to see people who think this makes sense. They're going to think that this woman that I just showed you actually tries to help them. Even though the whole video is one of trolling the peasants and setting them up for maximal suffering. You know, it's like you laugh at the suffering of the normal people who just want to have a decent life with their family, like all over Europe. These people don't care about you. I think that's obvious from that video. I hope it is. And if not, you know, I may sound like I'm like way off the deep end here. But for those of you who realize that there's something seriously wrong here, pardon me, I just think that the right frame for you to enter at this point is spiritual warfare. And that means that you need to clean your vessel. It means that any kind of addiction that you have could be seen in the light of demonic possession. It is a way more powerful paradigm, I think, than the psychological paradigm. There are these ways in which your life force is being sucked out of you. And wherever it's happening, and let's say that it's a demonic possession, where that's happening, you're losing vital force and you're losing your capacity to stand as a whole sovereign being in the face of this kind of spiritual warfare that is coming your way. And then that means that you could be damaged, you could be potentially co-opted or possessed. You have to speak the truth. You have to associate with the right people. You have to seek God. You know, there are no compromises to be made at this point. it's war. And a lot of the men who think that they're working to be strong and think that it's going to be a heroic, noble thing to die pointlessly on the front lines of a war with Russia, they're not strong. I'm sorry to say it, but strength isn't just to be able to punch somebody in the face and shout cuss words at them. Strength is actually to be able to stand unflinchingly and uncompromisingly in a total encounter with evil and still choose truth. That's our job. And will it prove dangerous? It very well might. That's a hardcore message that I'm giving you, I'm aware. But I wouldn't be surprised if you think it's insane. I think more and more of us are starting to see what's going on. And we see that this BS video is insane. And if our leaders are making videos to help us and keep us safe, they're not our friends. And yeah, you may very well be called a right-wing extremist for saying this. But this will be by people who are now pushing fascist policies, who are associating with Nazis, and many of whom are literal descendants of Nazi families. So I don't know what you think about this. I think it's going to be important for me to speak more and more about these things going forwards, because I personally feel like God is calling me to do that. I don't want to on a human level, but I think there is this enormous, beautiful, wonderful opportunity as evil ramps up for us to really distinguish between good and evil in our own lives and purify our vessels and just become really blessed people who live anointed lives, anointed by God. Because ultimately, God will win. A spiritual war will be won by God. And so when we align ourselves with the divine, with God, we are winners, and we need not fear. That doesn't mean it's not going to be hard, but it means that in the game of eternity, we're good. Leave any comments below if this sounded crazy or if it sounds reasonable. I'd love to have a conversation with you about it, because, it's... I don't think I'm alone here. And otherwise, have a great day, and I'll see you next time.